All right, good morning, good morning, good morning. Nice to see so many smiling faces first thing this morning. I know it's nice and cool out there. Gets the energy up and running, right? Gets the energy up and running.
Vigorous.
Yeah. I'll let this doorbell keep ringing here. Let everybody in here. I know we got lots of people jumping on because we really need there's important discussions today. It's always important discussions, but so I'm going to kick in first. There's a lot of activity going on in the market. I'm going to go into just the listings, pendings, and sales real quick, just so we can talk about some of the inventory we have out there and some of the opportunities we have out there. And then we're going to jump right into the new home inspection law, where we're going to spend the majority of our time today. Let's start on the pending side. Marianne put 25 Fawn Bar Winthrop under contract. Maureen put 409 Linfells Parkway and Saugus under contract. The team did 123 to 125 Center Street, Unit TH2 in Boston, and 111 to 121 Green, Unit 301 in Boston under contract. Morrissey 8 Greenwood in Reading. Emma 19 James in Middleton. And it looks like we might also have 90 Belmont Street in Lowell with Joe, and 31 Crest Ave in Revere with Chris, 66 Lincoln Circle in Swampscott with Kevin, and 175 Pollard Street in Billerica with Chris. For a couple of you guys, Chris, Joe, and Kevin on those pendings, let's make sure we're submitting your loops when you have your accepted offers in there so that they go into Tina for processing. So we make sure they get put on her tracking and she knows to watch for checks where applicable, et cetera, making sure that we're recording those properly. So it's been we're off to a very busy October. We love seeing that. On the listing side, we've got quite a few here to talk about, and I'll talk about the ones that haven't gone pending since they came on. I don't know, is Kevin on the call? Kevin has 636 Nichols Road in Malden, 699, 999. Kevin, if you want to, I don't think I even see him on here. Steve, you've got quite a few to go through here. You want to take a minute? You got 20 Oak Hill Road in Saugus for 850. You want to talk about that at all, Steve?
He needs to turn his volumes off.
I'm unmuting again because of
There
my
you go.
barking dog. Yeah, it's a great house in great house in Saugus. It's been updated 850. We had an open house last weekend, but I think the rain and the fact of the holiday weekend, we didn't have great attendance. We're having an open house again, and it's really a great place.
Okay, then you also have 36 Madison in Belmont, 2150.
Yes, that just went on Thursday. We had a broker open house, which Renee's been helping me with a lot of these. We had a really well-attended broker open house. We've had a couple of people circling, do not have an offer yet. And if we don't get an offer, we're going to have another open house this weekend. It's an amazing, pristine, beautiful place, incredibly decorated in Belmont. And there's a lot of interest. No one's just landed yet.
Good. Then you've got 105 Georgetown Road in Boxford for 1795.
Yes, that's an interesting one. That's a real estate, I would call it. It's I've never been to Boxford before. It's a beautiful, old-fashioned colonial Massachusetts town. It's about 4 acres. There's a pond, there's a pool, there's an outdoor spa, there's a dog kennel. The place is completely updated inside, 1.8 million essentially.
And then the last one is 3234 Mount Vernon Street in Saugus.
Yes.
1.2.
Yes, the Boxford people own that as well. It's completely updated. It's absolutely beautiful. $1.2 million. We've had some interest there, no offers.
Okay, then I've got Kevin. Kevin's got I don't know. I don't know that Kevin was on. Kevin, are you on? Kevin's got the 36 Nickel Rose in Malden for 699, 999, 66 Lincoln Circle in Swampscott, which I think may have already gone pending for 900. Michelle, I think I saw Michelle on here. Michelle, you've got 1 Mills Point, number 1 in Middleton, 969.9. Michelle on?
I can talk for Kevin if you want, because I know he accepted 975 on the Swampscott one.
Okay.
And then the other one you said he just put on, he's doing Thursday, Saturday, Sunday open house.
Okay, perfect. And then Joe's 90 Belmont looks like it went under contract. And Chris, you've got one in Revere. 31 Crest Ave, 1.119.
Yeah, I accepted 130 on that.
Okay, let's not talk accepted prices on here till things go closing, just as a future.
Okay.
Just in case something ever falls apart, we just want to be careful of that.
Yeah, I had the home inspection
There you go.
yesterday.
Michelle, do you want to talk about your One Mills Point? I see you now.
Oh, sure. I'd love to. So, it's in the Fuller Pond community, off of Route 114. It's, not a 55 and older, but it's a awesome community. It is a corner unit, 3,006 square feet. It has two primary bedrooms, one downstairs with a luxury bathroom, and one upstairs, custom millwork, Hunter Douglas, window treatments throughout. It's in mint shape. It really is. It's beautiful. And it's one of the few units that has a garage access into the house. So it's pretty desirable. So I have an open house this Saturday and Sunday.
Great. Okay, any other new opportunities coming up that you want to talk about, let people know about, loop them in on?
Paula, we have a single family in Southie that we're doing a broker's open house for today.
What's the address on that one?
480
Sorry, want to give the information?
Sure. So it's 480 East 8th Street. We put it on last weekend. We didn't do an open house because the seller's kind of private and she doesn't want like nosy neighbors coming in, but she's allowing us to do a broker's open house. So it's 2 beds, 2 full baths, 1 gas fireplace, 1,344 square feet. It's a nice single family. You know, it has a nice big kitchen with big open skylights and a backyard. But it's also a really good development opportunity because it's 2 streets away from the beach. And once you go up to the 2nd floor, you can see the ocean. So if there was a developer that was able to build, they could go up like 2, 3 floors and definitely get like a really nice ocean view. That's what happened like 2 doors down. It doesn't have parking, but also depending on, you know, the capability of the builder, if they excavated, they could put parking underground. It's detached, so it's not attached to any other buildings next door, which doesn't always happen in Southie either. So it's a good opportunity, but it's also, you know, could be good for an end user. You know, it's a little bit dated, but it's still really nice. It has nice hardwoods, you know, 2 full baths. It does have a basement that walks out, you know, laundry, all that stuff. So, and that's 1299. And again, I'm hosting a broker open house there today from 1 to 2:30. And we are going to have subs from the Dirty Italian, which is, I hear, a really good spot over there.
There
So
you go.
if you're
There you go.
hungry in the
Go for-
neighborhood, please
Go
come
for
in.
lunch. Go for lunch,
Yeah.
check out the new property and go visit April. April loves
Yes.
their company, right? Good.
I do. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, any other new listing or opportunities coming on that you'd like to share with everyone? All right, I see we have Andrew Marquis on the move in the car driving.
Good morning. How are you?
Before we jump into the home inspection stuff, you want to talk a little bit about, because I know the rates are still a big topic of conversation, and talk a little bit about what you're seeing in the market?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me. Hope everyone's doing well this crisp fall morning here. Rates are still showing a little bit of improvement, Paula, which is great. So it seems like every day we're just getting a little bit more, a little bit more. I think the market is a bit soft in the urban condos, especially like in Boston condos. They're a little bit slow to move. But we are quoting a lot of buy downs. So if people are looking for 2-1s or 3-2-1s or 1-0 or any kind of buy down, we can definitely quote those, provide marketing sheets. But I'd say it's still busy. It's not crazy, but it's steady. And, you know, like I keep saying on these meetings, I think working with buyers is just a lot better than it was 6, 12, 24 months ago. You know, buyers are getting their offers accepted.
Anybody else having trouble
when
with
they're
Andrew?
motivated, they're prepared, ready to go, and they're getting their offers accepted. So only guys. Oh, you guys hearing me now or not so good?
Yeah, you're back in, yep.
Can you hear me, Paula, or no?
Yep,
Back in?
back in,
Okay.
yep.
No, yeah, I was just saying working with buyers has been really good. I think that they're getting their offers accepted a much higher percentage of the time right now. So payment, we're having a lot of success with buyers, but it's been good. I think rates are coming down. We're getting some refinance business. I wouldn't say a ton yet, but still a good amount of buyers. If you have clients and they're at maybe like a 6.6% or higher, they're in the money to refinance, get that rate down to low sixes or even into the fives. We are doing some ARMs. So if you have clients that looking for a lower rate for the first 5-7 years, we have ARM products that are going to be into the fives right now. So yeah, so it's been good. What other questions do you guys have, Paula? What else are you guys seeing?
Anything from you guys? I think I agree with you with the condo market, right? It's definitely the single family home market's been stronger than the condo market. That's been in place for a couple months now. But that's also leading to a lot of opportunity for buyers that want to take advantage of some of the, even on the new development side, we've got some amazing pricing out on the new development condos that are out there. And then you've got a lot of opportunity where, it's less competitive. It's not a bad market for people to step in, and especially in combination with the low rates. You guys have any questions for Andrew?
No.
Is zooming and driving legal? Does anyone know? Is that fine?
Well, we're hands-free, right? So, I mean, I see it looks like you're hands-free, but yeah,
Exactly.
we might be pushing it. We don't want you to take your life in your hands either. So, we appreciate it, Andrew. I know everybody will get an opportunity to see you at our grand opening celebration at the Reading office next week.
Yes.
Those invitations have gone out, and we'll talk about that a little bit after. We'll send some more information out on that. For those of you that have not RSVP'd, please RSVP for us, but you'll get to see our partners there as well next week at the grand opening. So thank you, Andrew.
Thank you so much. I'll talk to everyone soon. Have a great day.
All right, so let's dive into the new home inspection law. So went into effect yesterday. It goes into effect on the contracts today. I just want to, sort of start from the beginning in terms of, I would recommend, as we've put out there, Anita Hill is doing 2 trainings. She did one yesterday. I don't know if any of you were able to go through that yesterday. There's another one today. I think today's is 10 to 12, if I'm correct, for the CEUs. So those links have been put out there by Sarah. If you're unable to attend the CEUs, the Massachusetts Association of Realtors site has a town hall. That's also a great reference, and it's also a great one to watch to get some information. Scott Sellers is going to join us in about 15 minutes or so, and he gets off another call too, so he can help answer some of the specific questions and the nuances. But I want to start by saying I appreciate everybody's attention to this and plugging in and doing what they need to do to make sure that they stay informed. One of the most important things to remind everybody here is that this new law has some serious consequences that go with it. So, this is a setup for 93A, which could mean 2 damages and triple damages, and it actually can also put your license on the line. This could actually put your license on the line. So I don't know how to say it, but we need to pay attention. We need to be smart about this. We need to make sure we have really good conversations. I'm going to start from the seller side, because the onus of this law goes on the seller side and the seller's agent, which is why the buyer's agent doesn't sign the new disclosure form. The listing agent signs the new disclosure form. So for those of you that have existing listings out on the system, my recommendation to you is that today, if you haven't already done so, you download the Massachusetts Mandatory Residential Home Inspection Disclosure Form. It is in .loop. It is in both our seller and buyer packages, just to make it convenient. But I'm going to address that in a minute, because it really should always be coming from the seller's side. It should be coming from the seller's side. So if you have an existing listing, it's on the market, you're going to be accepting contracts at some point here, I would go get the mandatory agents, Massachusetts Mandatory Residential Home Inspection Disclosure. You and your sellers sign it, put it in the loop, and upload it into MLS. Put it up in your listing in MLS so it's available for any of the buyers that are coming in, so that they can sign that and submit it with their offer. The onus here is that this has been disclosed and signed prior to any acceptance of an offer or acceptance of a contract. So the timing on this is important. And again, best practice, put it in MLS, have it be out there, have it be available, so that on your side, you're covered, that you've had the conversation with the seller and it's been put out there. Now, let's talk a little bit about that in terms of the conversation with the seller. This is a new law that's gone into effect. It's pretty clear. I would say as most laws, there is always some ambiguity, but it's very clear that what it gives is the buyer the right to do a home inspection. Does not mean the buyer has to do a home inspection, but it gives the buyer the right. And the seller has to say, we understand we're giving you the right. They have to be part of this conversation to protect themselves and so that you can protect yourself, that says, we know that you have a right to a home inspection as part of this transaction. That's what the disclosure is all about. It's saying that you have that right. You cannot have, we've said this many times and I'll say it again, you cannot have side conversations. You cannot put any requirement on the buyers that you would not accept an offer with a home inspection contingency. There should be no conversations around that. The buyer has the right. You are unable on the listing side to do anything that takes that right away from them. Okay? So, I mean, that has to be very clear to the sellers. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, under the new law, we have to allow buyers, should they want to do a home inspection. Now, are there going to be sellers that say, well, I only want to accept offers without a home inspection? Absolutely, because what's been in the space, right? They're not necessarily plugged into the laws. They're not necessarily plugged into what's actually really going on, which is, in reality, at this point, we do see more home inspections on the offers because of the change in the market. You know, back in COVID, when everybody was waiving and the market was high demand, you know, everybody was waiving it. So the sellers may still have that preconceived notion that, well, I only want to accept offers that don't have a home inspection. And or you'll hear language, I only want to sell my home as is. Well, they can still sell their home as is. They do not need to agree to do any kind of work to this or any kind of response to those repairs. They can still move on and not accept that deal, but they cannot stop or prohibit the buyer from doing home inspections within a reasonable time frame. Okay, does that make sense? Now, there's been some conversation and questions around, well, what if the seller does a pre-home inspection and makes that available? Does that satisfy the law? It does not. If a seller does a pre-inspection, that the law is very clear that it's buyer's choice of inspector. So a seller doing a pre-home inspection does not bypass the law in any way or make them not liable for the, you know, for that, or be able to say, I'm providing you this, so you can't do a home inspection. That would not be acceptable. If seller wants to do a home inspection, pre-home inspection, because they want to know what they may need to address ahead of time, that's fine, but it would have nothing to do with the buyer or what they would be able to take away from the buyer in that process. So from the seller side, I think the conversations with the sellers needs to be very clear. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, it's important and it's under the law, and we do not want to be hit with a 93A violation, which again, they can go after the sellers, they can go after you as a licensee. And those are very serious allegations to have to fight. We have to open up for home inspections. So you know, again, a good chunk of your sellers are going to say, that's fine. We'll review offers as they come in. You know, we'll take a look at that. And that's really where you have to approach it. You're not going to be obligated under this new law to do work. You're obligated under the new law to allow them access to do the standard home inspections so that they can make an informed decision. Does that make sense? In today's market, shouldn't be as hard of a conversation because, again, we're not seeing multiple offer situations typically across the board. There are still some things coming on that are like that, but this just takes that component of the negotiation off the table. And it comes off the table for every buyer. As the listing agent, my word of caution is, and again, I get it. I've been boots in the ground for 25 years. Please, please, please make sure, because there will be testers out there. I can guarantee you there will be a lot of testers out there for this one, especially. They're out there in force for some of the new buyer agency, the buyer agreement forms and things like that. Anyway, this is an easy tack on for them, but they're going to come at this hard because they're feeling very strong about, and again, the punishments are very strong for this, for the 93A. No side conversations, no secret text messages, no secret winks, no nods. Like nothing. That you have to be very careful of that. Now, on any questions of that in terms of the conversation with the seller before I dive into the offer coming in on the seller side first?
I
have-
just wanted,
oh, go ahead.
go ahead, Susan.
No, go ahead, Steve.
Oh, I just want to say, in one way, it's super easy. You just put the form on MLS and you're done until things get serious with the buyer.
Right.
Living this in real life, and you're just, I'm like so nervous I'm going to say the wrong thing.
Yeah.
We took an offer below where, we had hoped to take an offer yesterday on a property. And I was afraid to say to the buyer's agent, we do not want to renegotiate after the home inspection. Can I say things like that? Because they're having a home inspection.
Yeah, your sellers are not obligated to renegotiate.
Okay,
So
so I
that-
can't
yeah.
say that. I just,
Right.
like you're like walking on eggshells right now.
I appreciate that. Yeah, your sellers are not obligated to renegotiate. What they can't do is take away the right to it, right? So that's.
Right, and that was not what we were saying, but I was like,
Yeah.
I was so close to saying it, I just held it in.
I
and
know. Then you
tell her
hesitate.
why.
You're like, wait, is that crossing the line? I know, that's fine. It's a good question, but your sellers are not obligated to renegotiate.
Okay.
And so saying that they're not looking to renegotiate as part of the home inspection is fine. Now, on the contract side, you're a listing agent, it's your seller. A contract, an offer to purchase comes into you. You need to make sure now, as of today, that you have that disclosure form that your seller has already signed with the offer. And you need to ensure, because this is another big piece, we need to be careful of. The disclosure form does not take away the obligation to also have the correct information in the contract. Okay, it's just sort of one level of the protection, but the contract also still has to have the right language in it. So that means if that contract comes in from, now I'm talking about this, you're the listing agent. That contract comes in and you're going to give it to your seller. And it has a reference to the home inspection paragraph being deleted. Or it has a reference to waiving home inspection. That needs to go back to the buyers. Your sellers cannot accept an offer that has those kinds of terms in there where the buyer can't waive their right. They have an inherent right. They cannot waive the right prior to the execution of the contract. Okay, so again, your seller doesn't want to sign a contract that gives away the right to inspect. The seller should never sign a contract that has the inspection clause deleted. I think Matt had a great question of that on the Slack. I'm not saying to delete that at all. We did want to make a clarification around the right to inspect and the contingency piece, but I'm going to talk about that in a second on the buyer side. But your seller should not be signing any offer that has a reference to that. Now, I know this is a hard one because it's a difficult market. We've got sellers kind of anxious in some of these situations, and an offer comes in and they're like, just sign it, just get it done. I don't want to lose these buyers. We need to be very clear and communicate with the buy side under the new law. In order for my seller to sign that contract, I need that to be fixed in the offer. We can't be deleting the home inspection. We can't have any language in there prior to that contract execution. Does that make sense?
I have a question on the forms.
Yeah.
So there's two forms, right? So there's the Greater Boston form and then there's the MAR form. The Greater Boston form has two sheets. It has the offer page, which doesn't talk about inspections, and then it has the contingency page. So the new contingency page has the box to check for the mortgage, and then it has a box to check for the inspection, and then there's some fields that you can fill out or not fill out. So from what you're saying right now, if what I'm thinking is if they send me a Greater Boston form and don't have a contingency page, just have the offer page, it's not like they deleted that section. They're just not even giving it to me. But I also have the disclosure for the home inspection. So technically they can still do it as long as they get it done before the PNS.
Correct. Scott, I don't know if you want to weigh in on this because I think initially with this law, I would feel better with those offered a contingency piece in there with the inspection in there.
So the other, just before you keep going though, but the other one, the other form is the MAR form, which has section 7 is the new inspection contingency, which
Correct.
it doesn't say, you can't delete that. And there's two boxes to check.
Correct.
That, I don't know what that means, because the first
We're
one
going to
says,
talk about that in a second. I'm
Okay.
going to talk about that MAR form, but you've got a good question around if an offer comes in for the seller, right? The MAR form, the MAR form's got the right fields in there. The G-bar form does not have the offer contingency form in there. You'd have to attach the 3-part offer contingency paperwork. Scott, any thoughts on whether if a seller accepts on the G-bar form without the 3-part offer contingency form, if there would be an issue there, if the disclosure is included?
Yeah, so a couple of quick comments first is that I'm not really thrilled with these forms. I think they didn't consult, obviously, any of us, and Laura heard me say this yesterday in our class. It's just fraught with problems. I mean, I have to think, and we're all going to be learning this as we go along, us attorneys included. I have to think that if you get an offer without it, it's okay, because as long as there's no indication, any hinting, any language about waiving the inspection, the buyer's got the right to do it by law. So I would think it's okay, but I want to say, at least at the very beginning, I would go as close to the letter of the law as possible. Because there's going to be people out there testing you. There's going to be, the way this is all going to get resolved and get firmed up is by case law, by people getting sued, and by trial and error. That's the only way it's really kind of going to get resolved. So I would go as close to the
wanna be
letter
part
of
of
law as
that.
possible. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of misinformation out there too. There's from attorneys. We're all saying different things, so you're going to hear different things. And as I said, we're all trying to figure this out because they never consulted any of us, and they didn't consult any of you guys. They didn't consult lenders, and same thing when they did TRID. They didn't consult anybody, so it all got confusing, and they all got done not as smoothly as any of us would like it to be done. I mean, I like the idea of the law personally, but I just think the way they did the form. And we could talk about the other question I had in a few minutes, but I don't like that either. So.
Yeah, to Scott's point too, I do want to also reiterate, which I've trying to be careful about this. We've talked about this. There's so much stuff on the internet. You got agents putting stuff out there. You've got, they're recording things. You've got supposed experts out there recording there. Please, and that's why I try to point you to Anita Hill and the MAR site. Let's stick with the facts that we have from the right sources and folks that are truly plugged in and understand and working with the attorneys to get the best interpretation of that law, because there are some areas where they could potentially be misconstrued or turned around. What we want to try to do is really work very hard to be compliant in the best way that we know how. And also set that from information that we know is as accurate as is possible, right? I don't want to cite Joe Smith, the realtor from down the, I don't care if the number one realtor in town, that doesn't mean they understand the letter and the intention of the law. So from the seller side, are we clear? Make sure we have the conversation. Any listings you have now have a conversation with the introduction of the new law for any offers that are coming in today on. Make sure that you get that disclosure form signed. Best practice would be to upload it into MLS, because you're going to that makes it available to the agents that have buyers, and or then if someone isn't in MLS and you have to send it to them, you can send it to them ahead of the offer, because that form is supposed to be executed prior to the offer being executed. You shouldn't have a buyer sign one and then the seller sign it as part of that execution of a contract. Make sure the sellers are signing this first and then getting it over to the buyer for the offer. So from the buyer side, what does that mean? Well, the first step when you're going to make an offer is to get that mass disclosure form from the listing agent so that your buyers can sign this as part of the process of submitting the offer. Again, your buyer should not be signing the form prior to the seller signing it. I'd like to see the seller signing, it's got the date and time stamp on it, then your buyer signing, it's very clear that it's all done prior to the execution of the contract. On the buy side, as April mentioned, on the MAR form, the offer paragraph has already been updated. So the forms that you pull from .loop already has the updated MAR offer form is already out there. The language is already updated. If you haven't looked at it, go look at it. If you have any printed forms in your car that you use, or you have a template in .loop that you use all the time, make sure you download the new form from the template. The language has changed. So let me see, let me share real quick if I can. what this difference looks like. Lost you guys, where we go. Okay, everybody seeing that? You seeing that? Yeah, okay, thanks, Susan. Yeah, so this inspection contingency clause has changed. It no longer says delete if waived, because we're never deleting this. We're not deleting this. You're not waiving, you do not waive inspection prior to acceptance of that contract. Now, it has a date where you insert a date. Under the law, what the terminology that's being used is a reasonable amount of time given our market to perform a home inspection. We know in our market, I would say that reasonable is like that 7 to 10 day time period, right?
Yeah,
Our
Paul,
agent-
that's
Go
really
ahead.
gonna depend on the factors of each deal and what the market's like at that time. Are inspectors available? How long is it gonna take to get reports back? If you look in the provision, they also list all the other types of inspections. You know, so if you're doing a radon test, how long is that gonna take, or a water quality, or a Title V? All of that's included. Now, the home inspection is the only part that's included in the law. So if your clients are not doing a pest or a radon or a water or a sewer, septic system, you can cross those ones out, lead paint as well. You can cross those out of that paragraph. If they're
Just not the
doing-
home inspector piece, right?
Not the home
not
inspection,
the
'cause the
overall
home
inspection.
inspection,
Yeah.
a home inspection does not include those items. They really should have separated those items like the G-bar
Correct.
form typically does. They should
Yeah.
have separated those out. But the date's going to be really based on what's happening in the market. How fast can you get an inspector out? How fast can you get the reports done? If there's issues that you need to get estimates on, how fast can you get the estimates on those? You got to look at all those different factors, and you cannot put in like 1 day to indicate that you're not doing an inspection. You got to be real careful about that stuff.
And there's a lot of caution around that. To Scott's point, people, buyers agents, we're a smart crowd as agents out there, right? We kind of know how to work things to send messages. So I want to be careful. We're not trying to do that. I would stay away from, as a seller, as agent, an offer that comes in with a 1 or 2 day. I'd say, let's make sure we have adequate time for your buyers and get that updated. Now, you could have a conversation, check with them to say, hey, I mean, you might have a home inspector, the buyer might have a home inspection already lined up, and so they're okay with doing that. But again, we want to make sure that we're not in any way trying to eliminate their right to do that home inspection, and in that piece, give them adequate time to get that done. The contingency for getting that done or for informing the seller is the day after the date you put in here at 5 p.m. So the buyer will have until the day after you put in here at 5 p.m. to withdraw from the transaction based on the home inspection.
Well, I mean, obviously, home inspectors all of a sudden are going to be much more busy than we thought they would be. And their time is going to be harder to get.
It's a good consideration. And again, a buyer does not have to do a home inspection, right? It's just they get the right to do it now. So there are still deals where a buyer's going to say, well, I don't need to do it. That's fine. You might give me the right, give me the 3 or 4 days. That's fine. And then I'll waive. There is a form where you can say you waive the home inspection after the offer is accepted. If they want to do it that way, that's fine. So yeah, I think Steve, in the market right now, you're seeing a lot of home inspections anyway. There's certain pockets where we're still getting that pressure to waive the home inspection and move faster to things. But the majority of the market is in a place where the home inspection has been added back in. So it's less of a strain than what it's been, if it was 4 or 5 years ago that this had come into play.
Paula, is that waiver mandatory after the offer is accepted?
It is not.
Okay.
It is not, but it is a way that they can, they can just not do the home inspection, let it expire out, go into a purchase and sale. That's fine. But if a buyer,
Section 2 talks about that failure to provide timely notice of termination shall constitute a waiver.
yeah,
So
that
if you pass the
kind of
timeframe, it's
addresses
done.
it, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So the other
But
piece
if
of
you want
it,
to,
go
if
ahead.
you want to ease everybody's mind, if your client's not doing the inspection, have them sign the waiver afterwards. But you might want to hang on to it because they might change their mind.
Yeah. Yeah, so, also just from your guys' standpoint to understand this actually protects us on the realtor side. This actually adds another level of protection for us as realtors from that buyer that has said, and we've all seen this, especially the way the market was the last couple of years, the buyer's like, no, I'm good. I'm not going to do a home inspection. And then they come back and they're like, well, now we've got this huge repair problem. And now they're looking for help and starting to point fingers. And even though, you might have made a very informed decision, this kind of takes that informed piece off, it's a little clearer. They've had the right. They've signed all the paperwork. Everybody signed all the paperwork. They've had the right. This takes a little bit of the liability off of you on the side of down the road. I'm not going to say it eliminates it, but it does help alleviate some of those gray areas that have been coming up. So the next part of that is if the results are not satisfactory to the buyer, there's choose one, end buyer's sole discretion, or that there's an estimated aggregate cost of repairs that they're willing to consult. Now, that cost of repairs has always been kind of a big black hole, right? Because somebody can put a big number in there and that kind of indicates that they're not going to nickel and dime and, or maybe that they're not doing a home inspection. But we all know, and we've all seen situations where the buyer still comes back and says, I'm going to get out of the deal, or tries to negotiate based on that. So just keep that in mind as you go through there. But again, the law is very clear on this in that it should be a reasonable amount. It should not be an amount like, exceeds $1 million that, we would never be able to reach. And so that takes away, again, the right to inspect. We don't want anything that implies we've taken away the inspection. Scott, you want to weigh in on that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think most people are going to go with sole discretion.
Yeah,
The
and that's
issue
what I'd
comes in-
recommend.
And I mean, I don't even know why they have that in there. I think they should just,
Right.
you should just have the right to terminate.
Agreed. I think they should have
Right.
taken that component out completely, but
But because now you're negotiating essentially an inspection that you may not even have
right.
when you're working with an aggregate number, right? You're kind of negotiating the terms of the inspection that you're not supposed to indicate whether or not your client's having. So again, like Paula said, just be real careful if you're using that one about the number that you put in there. So yeah, if you have $1 million purchase, you can't be putting 800,000 in there because that's a huge red flag that you're not really doing a home inspection.
Yeah, I would also I would agree with Scott. I would go in buyer's sole discretion. Leave it wide open. Again, if you get an offer and if you're getting a MAR form in like this and the buyers have not filled this out, this needs to be kicked back. We need to have it completed. This should be a mandatory part of that contract because again, anything that implies that they're waiving the inspection and or you're potentially accepting an offer based on that information is where you're opening up that door for a problem.
And there's really twofold issues there, protecting yourselves from any kind of 93A claim, but also one of the things Anita Hill was talking about on my seminar yesterday is your duty to protect your client from
Right.
any foreseeable future harm. And the client could be sued up to a year if there's any issues with, an inspection maybe being waived or that any kind of violation of this law. So you have a duty to protect your client. So kick that offer back. Don't present it to your client yet until it's complete.
Yep. Any questions on the offer form?
So
From
just
the
one other
buyer.
comment, Paul, is that
Yeah.
section 3 there should probably not even be in that area. That number 3, that should probably be above if the results are not satisfactory, it should probably be the bottom of the first paragraph of number 7. It should say cannot be waived prior to offer being accepted. Can be waived, and it just has to be waived after the offer is accepted.
Correct, right. We said that, right? You can, if the offer is accepted and your buyer's saying, I don't want to do an inspection, I'm going to waive it. I just want to move forward with everything. There is a form that you can submit that says they're now waiving the right to inspection, but that needs to be done after execution of the contract. Shouldn't be done with the contract. Don't include it with an offer form.
I just wanted to confirm if you don't mind. So Scott said after where it says home inspector, you could cross out pest all the way to I guess water quality.
Yeah, those aren't part of the law. The law is just
Okay.
home inspection. And if you look up the
Correct.
definition of home inspection, it doesn't include those things.
I just almost think like if you had 2 identical offers and one of them had a couple things crossed out, it might look a little
Yep.
better.
I have,
Any other questions? Go ahead.
yeah, of course I have a question. So
Okay.
something in Slack that confused me. It was the inspection contingency waiver, like waiving the inspection contingency versus waiving the home inspection. And that it said that you still had the right to a home inspection, but you basically were not gonna renegotiate. But I don't understand, like, is that true? Like, I just don't understand how this contract, how you would do that.
Yeah, so Scott and I had some conversations around this because that actually came from the state licensing component of it, and I do think that is very confusing. So, you know, the law covers their right to inspect, right? It does not, the piece of that I think really that we want to be clear is it does not force the seller to renegotiate. A seller does not have to renegotiate or do repairs or be forced into anything. So, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, on this, but I think they inherently have, because of this with the sole discretion, they have a contingency built in, correct? With the
Correct.
amount or with the sole discretion, where they can get out of the deal based on that. They have the right to inspect, and with that right to inspect, they have a right to get out of the contract.
Correct. Now, the interesting thing is the G-bar form, which I don't know if you looked at it yet, has a slot where you put in what percentage of the buyer's deposits being returned. I don't know if you saw it.
I saw that. I have a
Yeah.
question that I wasn't sure what that.
Yeah,
was
why don't we
about.
go through that, Scott?
Do you have the form by any chance?
Yeah, while you do that, yeah.
So the answer is no, then, that we should just leave the form and it's assumed, like, so there's no waiving the inspection contingency.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, so it's contradictory to what I read.
Well, so that if you looked at the form, it's called an inspection contingency. It says that they can terminate the deal based on the inspection.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I understood 100%.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So
Literally,
so the-
100% of the offers coming in have an inspection contingency, and it can only be waived after the offer is accepted.
Correct.
I understand. I just read something differently, so I'm just trying to clarify.
No, I know. And I apologize, Susan, because I think that was part of from the stuff I put out there from the state site. I don't think that was very clear.
No, you don't need to apologize. There's so much contradictory information
Oh,
out
I
there
know.
that I'm doing my best to do it right, and I'm feeling a little frustrated. That's all.
I know, I get it. Whenever they change the laws, that always happens. Scott, what form are we looking for? The 3-part contingency?
the
Yeah.
G-bar contingency.
It's not the
Inspection
3-part. It
contingency.
just says it's the offer contingency page. It was
Got it,
updated.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So it has a provision in there that says that if the buyer terminates, and it's got a blank for you to fill in, a percentage of the buyer's deposit will be returned.
There's an extra
Buyer's
field in
agent.
the inspection contingency.
As a
Part.
buyer's agent, I'm not sure why you wouldn't put 100% there, but unless you're trying to say, unless you're trying to indicate something, but but it might be an opportunity for a listing agent to renegotiate that. I think it's silly to have that in there. It should just be that the buyer's deposit returned visible.
Okay, I think this is the right one here we're talking about. Yeah. Back to you guys. Hold on.
If they would have just asked me before they did these forms, we'd be all set.
Well, unfortunately, they asked, I don't know, Scott, they ask a lot of attorneys' opinions, I think, but it's kind of,
Yeah, they don't do real estate.
that's the problem, yeah. Here's the one here you're talking about.
Yeah, so you see the bottom of, I'm using my cursor, which none of you can see, of course. In the inspection contingency at the bottom of that, there's a slot there to fill in the percentage of deposit. So you have your normal G-bar provision there for the most part. And then you have the percentage down there at the bottom.
Well, from my understanding from the stuff I've listened to and gone through, and again, this is all about interpretation, putting anything in here could potentially conflict with the law, correct? If you're putting in anything except for 100% going back to the buyer?
It depends on what you're putting in, but it's got to be, again, a reasonable amount. I mean, I don't know why a buyer's agent would put anything but 100%.
Yeah, I think if you, yeah, I'd be very careful.
Other than wanting to indicate something which you're not supposed to do.
Right, yeah, that's why I just feel like, I feel like that could be a place where it could be construed that you've, you know, you're trying to show that, you know, you're doing a home inspection, but the buyer's not gonna take any of their money back. I think that's a dangerous ground to walk on right now until some of this stuff flushes out. Eileen?
So based on what we heard yesterday with Anita Hill, in that same paragraph, would we go ahead then and say, as if you're the listing agent, that we do not want to report? So we would strike that or renegotiate that and say, we don't want your report?
Yeah, I mean, that's the would be the recommendation, because you don't want to know if you're not, you don't want to know what the reports say, because then you got to disclose.
Yeah, that hasn't really,
report, you got to disclose.
yeah,
Right,
and
she
that
spent a few minutes
really,
on that.
that hasn't really changed, right? I mean, Scott, that's
Correct.
sort of been
Correct.
the frame of mind we've been in prior to this even.
Yeah, you
Right,
can
but I
cross
think
that.
that-
That's a part you can cross out.
Okay. Because I think probably, there'll be some people that say, no, it's their right. It's like that, it is their right to have the inspection, but it's the seller's right not to have the report.
Correct.
Yeah, and you want to make sure you educate your sellers as to why you don't want the report.
Right.
Because some of them may say, oh, I want to see the report to just make sure that these numbers are correct. It's like, well, no, you don't want to see it. Like, nope.
The key here is that also, I mean, we're talking about this from the buyer side when you're putting in your offer too, but the key is from the seller side. And I can't reiterate this enough. Sorry, hold on. He wants to weigh in on the topic. You on the seller's side, you don't want to sign anything that has any indication or indication or what's the word I'm looking for? Implies.
Implication.
Implication. Thank you, PT. Implication that the home inspection is being waived. I can't reiterate that enough. I know, even with the buyer's agent agreement thing came out, people like, oh, well, I'll just put it here. I'll just tell them this, or I'll just do that. Or I saw somebody put up a sign at a open house that said, we're offering buyer compensation, like, nothing. There shouldn't be anything like that. There should be no communication that the seller's in any way looking for the buyer to waive that right. The right is there. They cannot imply in any way that they will not take an offer. Otherwise, they will open themselves up to that 93A potential. And you will also open yourself up to 93A and potential licensing action.
Paul, one of the things we were discussing yesterday was what to do if you get an offer from an agent who maybe doesn't understand the law or even know about it, because you're going to get those.
Correct.
That waives inspection. What do you do with it? And it's a good offer, and you have an obligation to present an offer to your client. What do you do? And this is kind of where we were discussed about, making sure you protect your client and from any future harm. And you don't have to throw that offer out. And you'll hear from some people who say you can't accept an offer like that. You got to throw it out. You can't even entertain it. What we would recommend is that you go back to that agent, educate them on the law, and ask them to resubmit an offer. And then when you present it to your client, you got to be very careful about how you present that offer to your client and make sure you're presenting it the same way you would present any offer, and not give any indication that you were told that there was a waiver in a previous offer. You just got to present the offer without any discussion of inspection. You can even say to your client, we can't discuss, we shouldn't be discussing whether or not we think they're going to be doing an inspection. Just here's your offer.
Yeah,
But
so
be very
Scott,
careful about how you present that offer.
So Scott, to be clear, make sure we understand this the correct way. You get an offer, they're waiving home inspection. You go back to that agent, educate that agent on what you need in that contract and how that should be set up so that they're not waiving that right, and then present it to the seller. Correct? With the
Yeah,
updated
but-
offer.
And with no indication that you
Right,
received
not-
any kind of offer that
right.
saying it was waived, because you can't, the law isn't about you seeing a waiver in an offer. It's about your client. It's about the seller accepting an offer or not accepting an offer based on inspection.
Right, so you shouldn't be sharing that you had to do that. You shouldn't be sharing that they waived it, didn't understand their rights, and I had to go back. You just present it as the offer comes in with the new, with the
And
updates.
there was some concerns about that conflicting with your obligation to share with your client. But, you know, Anita's feeling really is that gets overridden by your duty to protect your client from
Correct.
future harm, potential future harm.
Hey, Scott.
Yeah,
In that case, with the seller's permission, can you request that the MAR new offer form is used?
you know, everybody kind of uses whatever form they want to use. Some companies even make up their own forms, and they're not even MAR or GBAR, so you know, they just have to fill out the forms properly.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
I'd stay away from requesting a specific offer form and just make sure that it's compliant for what is submitted.
Okay. Also, at a second question, if you're a buyer's agent representing your buyer and there's multiple offers on a property and you already know of a lot of expensive repairs that are needed, when submitting an offer, can you do, say it's $1 million, is a $200,000 cap on the home inspection reasonable in that case? If you know it needs a new septic, a new roof, a new bathroom?
I'm gonna be a lawyer here and say I'm not a judge, so I can't tell you that one.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
that you're hitting
Okay.
on an area that's gonna be, and again, with the law, it's way too ambiguous. I mean, even when you listen to the Mars site, I mean, it's a little, that concerns me that it's like, well, is it reasonable? So, I mean, the
Yeah.
test is it reasonable based on the value of the property? And I think the key here is that you're not in any way indicating that the buyer is losing any right or ability to inspect, right? That the seller isn't granting them any right. That's why I think the buyer's sole discretion is your safer box to go to. So there's not that ambiguity or that arbor. Because again, neither one of us can say that wouldn't potentially cause a problem.
I
And/or
think you could-
try to send a message, because that's my issue is anything that tries to send a message of what the buyer isn't intending to do an inspection, whatever, that's where we're gonna get into problems.
I think you could say something to the effect like, buyer acknowledges the HVAC system is old and is in need of repair and will accept the HVAC system in as-is condition.
Okay.
I don't think you could say you'd accept the whole house in as-is
Mhm.
condition, because then you're waiving inspection, but I think you could point out, you know, set specific items
Okay.
that you're aware of.
Gotcha.
There is,
Thank you.
there is that additional provisions part in the MAR form, so you maybe could say it in there or
Yeah,
something.
yeah. And that other
I wish they
paragraph,
took some of the reasonableness out of this. I wish they had just said, you know, 10 business days to do it rather than leave it
Yeah.
blank and get rid of the aggregate. I think that would kind of make this a little bit easier for everybody, but
yeah, and keep it simple without the amount. That would have been nice if
But I'm-
they got rid of that.
I'm not worried about you guys because you guys do things the right ways. It's the agents who don't get educated and don't know what they're doing and supposed to be doing that try to get around the laws rather than do it within the law. Those are the agents who are going to have trouble. But
Right.
those are the ones who will be presenting offers to you as well. So
I was just gonna say that we're having to deal with them as a listing agent side. That's why we want to be prepared
Yeah.
to have the right conversation there. Good. So, what else? We've got the forms. Got the process, the conversations, you know, again, make sure on the buy side, you know, this is about having good conversations with both your sellers and your buyers on the buy side, because as we know, you know, buyers sometimes take things and run with it. And so they might think, oh, now I have this right to home inspect and I'm hearing it all over the news. And that means I can, you know, inspect and go back and ask for $500,000 in credits, and the seller's going to have to do that as part of this. So again, that's an extreme example, but we all know that the buyers take it and run with it. And you know, they're often looking to renegotiate and stuff. So let's make sure we're having, and I know you guys are doing this, have a good conversation around what that really is. It's a right to inspect. It does not mean the seller has to renegotiate with us in any form or fashion. It just means it's giving you the right to inspect, and it's giving you the right to get out of the transaction based on that inspection. Scott pointed out that it is the right to the home inspection. It does not ride into pest and radon and all that stuff, so that can be crossed out of there. This also only applies to residential properties of 1 to 4 units. So when you get into the investment properties 5 and above, or commercial properties 5 and above, this does not apply. There is also a handful of situations it doesn't apply to, like non arm's length transactions, like transactions between a relative that hasn't gone to market, something that has to be part of a divorce that's not going to market, something that's an estate sale, also again staying within a family, not an estate sale going to market, that would fall under the new law, but something that was an estate sale that was staying within a family or transfer title, then that also would not apply. The piece on the new construction is, please make sure that you don't overreach that as well, because it does not apply to new construction that is not really, it has nothing to do necessarily with the occupancy certificate, but it has more to do with the livability of the property. So if it's, land framed out, stuff like that, true new construction, then this law doesn't apply. But anything that has sort of a completed new construction, maybe it's on the brink of getting an occupancy and not that far off, would fall under this new law.
As well as any gut rehab reno where there's a foundation and they're building up from the foundation, that still applies as well. I have to take off. I'm jumping on a different seminar for First American, so I will see you guys later.
Thank you, Scott. Any other questions on the process or the forms or what we need to do for today going forward?
Is the webinar that was mentioned previously going to be put into Slack? I believe it was Anita Hill.
Yeah, both of those. There were 2 CEUs that Anita Hill did. She did one yesterday. She's doing one today, 10 to 12. I know that Sarah put that out there on the Slack. I don't know, maybe Sarah, you can pop that back out there again for the link for the registration for that. And then we'll also put out there on the Slack the link to the MAR, the Massachusetts Association of Realtors Town Hall. It's on their site. There's a town hall on it. But again, we've talked about a lot of the stuff in there, but it's another way to go back and do another reference. And then I'll do some follow-up as we go over the next couple of days and we see some, questions, things come out. Any questions, please reach out. I mean, text me, call me. If there's any, like Susan said, oh, I'm afraid I don't know what to say. Like, there's going to be a lot of that, especially over these first couple of weeks. I would rather you call and ask the question than get yourself in trouble and or get your client in trouble, because really this is also about protecting that seller.
I will reshare those links.
Well, it's starting right now.
Two of us.
Anita Hill. Yeah.
I'll share those links, but Matt, I don't think the Anita Hills are recorded, unfortunately, because
She doesn't usually record.
she runs them.
Yeah, she doesn't record. Those are CEUs.
Hey, Paula, you put in Slack that there was a mandatory session for everyone earlier this week. What is that?
Yeah, no, I was going to do that. And again, with the Anita Hill stuff that came on that was available and the ability to do the sales meeting and stuff under the timeline, I'll put some follow-up recordings out there for you, but you guys are good. Those of you that are on here today, we're covered. I'm just going to make sure we follow up with some folks that are not on here today. And I would really recommend, I would like to see everybody go through like an Anita Hill. I'm sure there'll be others past this week and I'll reach out to her to look at what that schedule is, because she just does a great job of really helping to protect yourself and protect your clients. She does a really good job of laying that out in terms of the do's and don'ts.
I'm hopping on that one right now. So
yep, I'm going to let you guys jump on over to Anita Hill. Appreciate you guys joining me. Any questions, please reach out. Sarah and I will put out some dates of some upcoming events too. We've got the Reading grand opening coming up next week. We've got the trick or treat event at the Reading office. We've got some meetings on the calendar coming up. So we'll make sure you've got a full link out to everything that's coming up.
Thank you, Paula.
Anything else you guys need today?
Thanks,
Appreciate everybody joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.